So it's that time of the year again where everyone's posting their best and worst books of 2020. I had a pretty good reading year. I didn't actually read that many terrible books because I don't know why. I think I started the year trying to finish off the Wheel of Time series. So first quarter of the year was basically just books 3 to 14. And then after, the lockdown, I was definitely able to, burst onto the scene in terms of reading because no one was using libraries at the time. So I was like having free reign over every book I wanted. So for like 2 or 3 months there, I was reading everything. So I had a pretty good year, and I want to do 2 separate videos. This one will be the top 5 books of the year. I only read about, oh man, I don't even know. I'll just do a quick count. I'll be right back. 40, 41, 42. Okay, so I think I forgot to write down the last book I read. So I'm around 42, which is not bad. That conquers my number from last year, which was 34 plus. I didn't start doing book reviews on this channel till about mid last year or so. Yeah, so I did a pretty good year. I haven't reached 50. My goal for next year is 52, one per week, or on average. So I only have 5 books per best and worst because I've only read 42 books. It's impossible to be like top 20, but that's no big deal. Let's start the list off strong with N.K. Jemisin's The 5th Season. I actually do own the book. Oh, I don't want to, fine. Let's start this list off with something strong with N.K. Jemisin's The 5th Season. I borrowed this trilogy from a friend during the lockdown I had in my country. And even though all 3 books have won the Hugo Award every year in a row, the first book for me is the best by far. It is such an emotional, strong, fresh, personal voice from the author. The magic system is really interesting too. It's not purely fantasy too. It's got this sort of hard dystopian sci-fi edge to it as well. So it's like sci-fantasy. It's not too much into the power. It's more about the characters and like their wants and needs. And it's a very stark, grim series for adults. There's a lot of interesting themes in here about motherhood and about sexuality and racism, and it's never too heavy-handed. They really like go over it with a nice subtle touch. So the 5th season, just the first one, is number 1, and they're not numbered. This is just the first one. The second book of my favorites list, I've forgotten. It is The Kind Worth Killing, a solid standalone recommended to me by Emily Fox. This book is really great. I can't find it anywhere. I have to order it if I want to own it, but I do want to own it. It is a homage to Patricia Highsmith's Strangers on a Train, about a man who's drunk too many martinis in a bar, and a mysterious woman introduces herself, and he lets his guard down and talks about his cheating wife and how he would like to kill her. And this woman goes, "Maybe I can help you with that." And the plot only gets more and more labyrinthine from there. So what I really liked about this book is that it feels like a really good crime thriller movie. When you're watching a movie and you're like, this is pretty good, and then like it keeps getting better, and then it just doesn't stop. There's no, let's have like a lame ending, or it just keeps going, and it just rockets to the stratosphere of your expectations. And it's a perfect ending, amazing tone throughout, really interesting, diabolical characters. Obviously these people are not good because all of them want to kill each other, but you really get that mindset of why they want to do this, and it's really interesting. And I really liked how the plot just sucks you in and never lets go, and especially the ending. The ending is like the perfect icing on a really nice cake. So The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson is number 2. Number 3 is Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. This is the second part of a duology. The first book being Dread Nation, which a book that wasn't that great because the ending sucked. But Deathless Divide is the ending I wanted. It's a really great book. I don't know if you can categorize this as young adult because it feels like a young adult, but it's not really. But this book basically takes off immediately after the first book ended, and I was kind of bored. But then the book does a time jump, and it does it so well, and then it completely changes the tone, the setting, and gives us some nice fresh perspectives on the characters that we've already grown up with. And then it gives us an amazing, solid, satisfying conclusion to the duology, which is, you know, something that I was not expecting. I was expecting this movie to be kind of, I was expecting this book to be kind of like, you know, let's make it a trilogy. But no, they ended on a duology, and I'm glad they did, because this book gave me everything. You know, it definitely focuses on, I know I don't read a lot of zombie fiction, but this book was pretty solid because of the characters, and the time jump only, you know, flavors them all a little bit more, you know, and gives us a new fresh plot, interesting dynamic, and the zombies become less focused, and the characters and their motivations end up being the sort of larger scale thing to focus on. So Deathless Divide is a really solid book. The only, you know, con would be that you have to read Dread Nation first, but that's a small caveat for a solid finale. The Humans by Matt Haig. I had to go out and buy this one too after reading it. I borrowed this one from the library and read it within like 2-3 days. It's my first book from Matt Haig, and it is a wonderful one. It's probably his best book by far. I've only read like 3 of his books out of 4 fiction. I haven't read his nonfiction or his children's books. But The Humans is a really nice, fun tale. It is about an alien assassin who is sent to Earth to halt humanity's progress by destroying all evidence of a math formula that a mathematician has solved. The mathematician in question is a selfish, headstrong professor of math. So the alien has to go there, replace him, destroy anyone who knows about it, and destroy evidence that he ever solved it, because they and their council, I guess, feel that humanity is not mature enough to, you know, go there and then eventually, you know, develop space travel and, you know, escape the star system of sorts. So this sounds like a really heavy sci-fi book, but it's not. It's more of drama, you know, with sci-fi elements, and I really like that, because you're doing it all from the perspective of this alien who's finding out what it means to be human, and he sort of starts to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit, because he has no idea how to act. So his family is kind of like weirded out by his, you know, his new outlook on life, and he starts to fall for his, you know, human family, and he shouldn't be. You know, he should be trying to wipe out any form of evidence of the equation being solved. So this book is heartwarming, it's funny, it's darkly comic. There's some pretty dark moments in this book as well. The only bad part about it is the pacing at the end. They do some list stuff at the end there, which is weird, but overall, The Humans is a really nice look at humanity from the guise of an alien showing down. And the way that the book is, the structure is really quick read. It's like really fast, because like every page is a chapter basically. So every chapter is like 3 or 4 pages, sometimes shorter. You get little snippets, little vignettes of, you know, his time on Earth. So I really enjoyed The Humans by Matt Haig, and that's number 4. Number 5 is Memories of Ice. The reason why this book is covered in so many elastic bands is because it's a used copy I found at a thrift store, and the binding was all messed up. So it's got glue on there, and I'm letting it dry. Anyways, Memories of Ice is the 3rd book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. It is a very dense, sprawling series of books that's not for everyone. The first book was okay. The second book was also kind of cold, but what really sticks out with Memories of Ice is that this book is like twice as long as the other 2. It's a sort of a direct sequel to the first one, while the second one is its own standalone kind of different group of characters. So this one sort of carries on from the first one, but the tone, the epic scale of everything is just so amazing. You know, like they introduce a character. She's a sorceress, and she has sort of defeated these 3 powerful swordsmen that are from like an island of sword fighter guys. I'm not explaining it very well, but basically they're called the Segulae. The Segulae are basically quiet, warlike people that are all about fighting. They love fighting. They are unparalleled sword fighters. However, when they tried to attack her, she, you know, used her magic, and she sort of, you know, whipped them. And she's like, you guys are my servants now. And she's also got 2 sort of godlike creatures that are taking the form of small dogs. And she's doing her own thing. And this isn't even like part of the main storyline. She's like literally, this character is amazing, fun, dialogue, And she's not even the main part of the storyline. She's doing her own thing while the main characters are sort of fighting this religious cult force that's attacking from the south. So what's really cool is that she's doing her own thing, and the way that it's written, it's so epic. Like I could just, it almost felt like I was transported there. The way they write that first action sequence where they go and she goes and makes first contact with the this cult-like religion place. It's very dark scene, very, very grim. Can't get into it because, I don't want to. But basically they go there and they just mess stuff up. And they're very powerful, and the enemy does not realize how powerful they are. And they're able to completely annihilate all of the forces there and basically carve a swath through the entire religious cult's, not their main force, but, cause trouble. And it's really amazing how visceral and how, descriptive these action sequences are. And it's not even part of the main storyline. The main storyline is very broad and sweeping, epic. There's also a deep emotional core, some twists in there. It's hard to talk about this book without getting into spoilers and stuff, but it's one of those book series that if you stick with it, it will reward you, because the first book is it's kind of weird. It's 600 pages. There's literally 20 characters you're following it, and the writer himself has said that the basis for these novels is Dungeons and Dragons type story. So the first book focuses on 20 different characters in 2 different cities and different jobs, different hierarchies and things like that. And the second book leaves you a little bit cold because it's mostly about taking place in another country, a rebellion. And then this one is finally a bridge to the first book, but it also has that sweeping large narrative, and it just blew me away. Honestly, I couldn't put it down. And obviously I'm going to keep reading the series, but Memories of Vice was a very, interesting read for me, because it almost feels like the series is sort of showing me what it can do, kind of like when you're watching a TV show and the first couple seasons are kind of meh, and then you get that moment where you're like, bam, you're like, whoa, I'm in now, I'm in, for me, that was book 4 and 5 for The Wheel of Time. The first couple books are very, J.R. Tolkien-esque, and then it just shoots off into its own thing. So another book I want to mention, just a runner-up, I guess, would be the Wheel of Time series. And it's unfair for me to just put all of them on there, but yeah, I read the Wheel of Time at the beginning of the year, and fantastic stuff. Books 3 to 14. My personal favorites of all the books, there's 14 books and 1 prequel novella. So my favorites personally are 5 and 13. 5 is kind of the one, it's like a payoff book, because book 4 takes things in another direction from the Tolkien-esque sort of beginnings of farm boys leaving the small town, going to the big town to defeat the Dark Lord. And book 5 gives you this huge battle, all of this stuff happening, and it really sets it off in its own thing. And then book 13 has a really crazy emotional moment near the end, and it's the first book to make me cry, which is a hard thing to do. I'm not made of stone, but yeah. So books 5 and 13 are my personal favorites. I scooped them all up. They're on my shelf now, but so those are my top 5 books of 2020 that I read in 2020. Here's to another fabulous reading year in 2021. I hope to crush my previous number of books, read some new stuff, and maybe I'll even do a top 10 if I read enough next year. So until then.